All right, good afternoon, everybody. So as Alex mentioned, my name is Brianna from Erie County Department of Health, working in the environmental division. And we also have Lisa, Suzanne, and Jenna Snyder here from our food safety team. So we know that we're all here to talk a little bit about licensing this afternoon, and we have a few things to share with you just about our current processes and the food laws that we work with, and then want to really open it up for discussion. So we'll go through the slides pretty quickly, but like Alex said, if you do have any questions in the meantime, or if anything's not clear, please don't hesitate to ask. The Erie County Department of Health is one of 10 local health departments across the Commonwealth. We currently have about 100 staff members, and so we have some growth and some growing pains, but our environmental team has remained pretty steady and continued to do a lot of our work within food safety and our and the programs that we work in. Our health department became nationally accredited in 2014 and was reaccredited in 2020. So we are meeting national standards. We were actually the first in the state to become accredited, and really hold our heads high on that fact that we're working towards standardizing public health and the work that we do. Our mission, if you're not familiar, is to preserve, promote, and protect the health, safety, and well-being of the people and environment of Erie County. And a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to are the lines that we reduce preventable illness and control the spread of disease, as well as identify and eliminate health and safety hazards, which are our goals when we're working within the food safety program by checking out sources of food, providing licensing, and food safety inspections. The laws that we work with to license retail food facilities are Pennsylvania Chapter 46, the Pennsylvania Food Code, and Act 106 of 2010. So within the Pennsylvania Food Code, now the FDA Model Food Code is embedded. So anytime that there's a federal update to their food code, those laws are automatically in place in Pennsylvania. We would always provide education before we would start to look for any changes during our inspection routine, and work with everybody to make sure that we're all understanding what those changes are. A retail food facility in itself is a place that sells food directly or indirectly to the public. And another definition that I wanted to share was the temporary food establishment. So those are food establishments or food facilities that operate for a period of no longer than 14 days with a single event or a single celebration or a single location. I had just copied this part though about exemptions for licensing. So two of the exemptions to touch on right out of the Pennsylvania Food Code are that section B1, which is a retail food facility where only prepackaged and non-potentially hazardous food or beverages are sold. So that's a place that doesn't need a license, but the only ones that we really have as brick and mortar places within Erie County are maybe like small gas stations that only sell, chips and candy, maybe like a concession stand, and what we lovingly call the bread store, which recently ran out of business, but only sold loaves of bread. It's a really great place. For things like temporary events and like farm markets that we're talking about today, some of those prepackaged and not potentially hazardous foods are things like syrups and honeys. The second exemption is a retail food facility that sells only raw agricultural commodities. So if you're just selling fruits and vegetables that you've harvested and are taking those to the market without cutting, without further preparing them for consumption, then those would be exempt from licensing. The other exemptions are granted directly by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture or the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture. And we're not aware of those exemptions within Erie County. From the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, they have a farmers market frequently asked questions document. And that's where they break it out into these 6 types of products that might be sold at farm markets or temporary events. And it goes through what their definition might be and what the requirements for licensing are. So as we said, raw agricultural products, fruits and vegetables that have been harvested but not really processed are exempt from any kind of licensing fee and application. If we would see you in the field at an event, we might stop by and just say, you know, like, hey, what do you have on sale today? Partially because we're curious, partially just to have that conversation if everything's just raw agricultural products or not. Prepackaged, not potentially hazardous foods. Again, it's listed there as baked goods, jams, honeys, syrups. Once items become unpackaged, so if they're open and exposed, or if they are potentially hazardous, then a license is required. So unpackaged foods are things like baked goods that maybe you want to serve cake by the slice, right? So maybe you want to like serve that up or add some toppings to an item right there, then you would have to have a license in order to serve that, as well as selling things that are prepackaged and potentially hazardous. So like milk, eggs, and cheese and meat at markets. The last 2 categories are really for more ready to eat foods. So if they're unpackaged and potentially hazardous, such as like deli meats or things that are being sold for immediate consumption, pierogies is an example that we've used a couple of times today. So that would also could include things like food carts in different restaurants or ready to eat foods. A license is needed in those categories as well. Our current licensing options are shown on the left-hand side of your screen. So they include a temporary food facility license, which is tiered based on the length of days of the event. For farm markets and consecutive events, we do consider each day out of, I don't know how to word this, each day out of the week as one of the days for the license. So if you attend a farmer's market that's every Wednesday from June through September, then we would count each Wednesday as one of your 14 days. The other option is that we have an annual mobile unit license, and those are things that we typically have issued for our food trucks or some of the food stands that are seen at events throughout the summer, but could be utilized in a farmer's market setting as well. One requirement for the annual mobile unit is commercial equipment. I also copied over a couple of the other fees from other places that I could find throughout the state, just to show where we kind of fall in comparison. So the Department of Agriculture, specifically for farmers markets, excuse me, has a $103 initial fee and an $82 renewal. Bucks, Montgomery, and Delaware, and the city of Easton are all between $140 and $150. And Allegheny County offers 2 different kinds of licenses. They have a seasonal license for $77. However, that is spelled out within their Allegheny County regulations, which are different than the Pennsylvania Food Code. What comes next? So meetings like this are one of our first steps in reviewing our current fee schedule. We're working on a departmental policy so that we have regular updates to the fee schedule, so that you know, it's never a surprise. It's every 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years, or at some type of regular interval, so that we know when it's time to start that process. We will conduct a full review of the current fee schedule, comparing all of our fees to fees across the Commonwealth and neighboring counties of other states. We would send out any kind of notification prior to votes on the fee schedule because the fee schedule is approved by county council. So it is an ordinance that goes forward to county council. And then just something that we're really working towards is online applications and new inspection software for our team so that we can work more efficiently and provide a better service to our people by allowing for online applications, payment online, and reducing those trips into our office or the paper application process. I told you that we'd go through it quickly so that we have a lot of time for questions. And Alex and Marty were great enough to put together these questions to start off the conversation, or we can start with anything from anybody. So feel free to unmute yourself if you're online or in the room. Feel free to just ask a question or type them in the chat. There is also a survey that will be sent out after the event, but just really looking to open up a discussion this afternoon. Thank you.
So I know that our process, like our fee schedule right now, does not allow for this, but this is something that theoretically could be a possibility. Could we look at a category for like agricultural, and I know that we'd have to define it very explicitly, like agricultural products such as meat, dairy, cheese, eggs?
I think that we could. So the question was that while our current fee schedule doesn't allow it, could there be a potential license category, temporary license category for specific agricultural products such as meats, eggs, milks, and cheeses? And I think that the answer would be potentially, as long as we can define what those items would be and what the value would be in providing food access and healthy food access to the members of the community.
For anyone who's online, do you have any barriers or questions or concerns that you've come across related to participating in farmers markets?
Should I repeat that? Do you think I should repeat that?
I'll put it.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a question from earlier today. So Steph and I wrote together and on the way home, we were talking about the definition of coolers. You had talked about coolers and how do you define a cooler as far as like the equipment pieces versus the farmer who might have a cooler? Do you define that?
Sure. So the question is, I'm sorry, trying. The question is the definition of coolers that like a farmer might use for transport versus coolers as equipment that would meet the guidelines of our mobile unit license. I guess it would be mechanical is the difference. I want to say that that's like actually defined as something that would be like ANSI approved or NSF approved. Now I do, I know that we talked the other day about like the capacity of coolers that carry ice now and how advanced they are versus like the igloo cooler that I have from 20 years ago. And that's something that we could look into if there are like any type of ANSI approved options for that, maybe in a limited use capacity. I would be happy to look into that a little bit further. But I think that the difference would be the mechanical aspect of it. Yeah, something that, you know, plugs in and can really regulate the temperature. That's our concern with the coolers, is that there's no type of regulation if it gets, you know, to be 90 degrees out and hot.
I'm going to borrow Katie's question from earlier. What are the most common misconceptions that you hear related to food safety in the health department?
A lot of times people think that because they are just giving food away, they do not need to have a license, but that is definitely a big misconception. It's wonderful that for people to give food away, but regardless if you're giving it away or selling it, you still are required to have a license. Our mission is to make sure that people stay safe. So regardless if you're giving it away or selling it, either way, it has potential. So yeah, please make sure you tell your friends that want to give food away that they still have to talk to us.
Another common misconception that we talked about earlier was just that if you have a question about licensing or regulations, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We are more happy to answer questions in advance than like have to fix violations later. And it doesn't like flag you on our radar or anything like that. It's easier to have that conversation up front, again, before you might invest money into equipment or change your operation for something that you think might be better when it might not be something that's as feasible. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to your inspectors or the health department generally.
I'll piggyback off that too. In addition to that, the health department wants you to operate, though there may be inevitable barriers. Our goal is to provide you with a license. Our goal is to get you to do what you want to do. But unfortunately, sometimes there are some barriers we have to get through. But the health that is a misconception. That health department just wants to make things hard, or just wants to, doesn't really want you to operate, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Our job is to help you brainstorm and figure out how we can do it. We just have to do it legally and safely.
Can you give the walking taco example again?
Oh, yeah. So earlier I'd given an example of, concession stands, like, ball field concession stands. And I know that typically might seem like a killjoy, but like I use the walking taco example all the time, but you can't make taco meat at your home where your cats are walking across the counter and then bring that to the event and sell that out to people. Sometimes our standards at home aren't quite as strict as they need to be for operating for the public or providing a product the public are going to pay for. We need to be sure that we're following all the standards that a restaurant would. We would lose our minds if we saw a cat walking across the counter at a restaurant, but sometimes those standards kind of slip a little bit. We think that that we can do it at home. Nobody ever thinks their own germs are gross, but that is not the case. So that's one of the things, like preparing food at home, even though yes, it's safe for your own family, there are higher standards that you have to abide by when you're providing that to the unsuspecting public.
Thank you.
I know that not everybody on the call is necessarily involved with farmers markets either at this time. So is there any other questions just as far as general food or general fee schedule or anything like that?
Hey ladies, it's Kathy Ross. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Hey, so if we go online, what is that going to look like? That would be exciting. So renewals could be paid online and online and
that is the hope. We're looking at a whole upgrade to like all of our online systems.
So we've
Yeah,
been
so-
talking for a while about being able to pay with credit card, the renewals and such. So is that still not a possibility? It's all gonna come together?
For renewals for your annual license, you can.
Oh, I can? Okay.
Yep, yeah, I'll email you the link tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten anything and I don't know if we're doing snail mail or email on those, but I'd love email because I don't have my mailbox out in Albion yet, because the snowplow may hit it because you people still are having snow.
Kathy vents in Florida over the winter and then comes back up to Erie and Chautauqua. The invoice is probably mailed, but I'll look tomorrow and I'll send you something for it at least and try to send you an electronic copy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anything new and exciting on our end for this year?
No, it seems like events are coming back pretty full force.
Okay, and there's nothing new with concessions, nothing new you want?
Nope.
Okay,
All right.
ready to get to work.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Kathy. I'm glad that you jumped on.
Thanks.
One other thing that I just wanted to include, since we'll be recording this and sharing it out later for folks who couldn't be here in person or live. The process of renewing changing our fee schedule and changing how we do things at the health department is not as simple as just writing a policy and then that's how we do things. It actually has to be an ordinance and it has to go before county council, and then eventually the county executive has to sign off on it. So it truly is a lengthy process, and that's why we wanted to hold this feedback session sooner rather than later, so that we could start having these conversations and put something together, because it isn't a quick and easy process, as most things in government tend to not be. But this isn't the only opportunity for feedback. So for those of you who might be watching later or after the fact, we will be sending out a survey, and then the health department, we're very lucky here in Erie County. Our environmental staff is very education oriented and very willing to collaborate. So if there's ever something that you're not sure about or you think there's room for improvement on, we really are open to feedback throughout the entire process.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from our virtual guests? All right.
Well, thank you all again for your time. We really appreciate everybody who was able to join us today and look forward to collaborating in the future.